the aisle segment tonight. A shocking new report from the Government Accountability Institute reveals in Ohio's 12th congressional district, where the special election results are still too close to definitively call the race in favor of the Republican, there are 170 registered voters who are over 116 years old. The oldest person in the world, just to put this in perspective, is 115 years old, and that person lives in Japan. In other words, there are 170 opportunities for voter fraud in that one district, where the difference between a Republican congressman and a Democratic congressman is the difference between just a handful of votes. Even worse than that, in 2016, in Ohio's 12th congressional district, according to the Government Accountability Institute, 72 of the registered voters over 116 years old actually cast votes. That means those votes were fraudulent. Remember, liberals tell us all the time we don't need voter ID laws because voter fraud, they say, doesn't happen. So here's my question. If every vote matters, why doesn't every fraudulent or potentially fraudulent vote matter? With me now, Democratic strategist Laramie Flick. Laramie, good to see you.
Good to see you again, Liz.
All right, Laramie, let's get right to the heart of the matter there. I mean, you heard those statistics from the Government Accountability Institute. 170 registered voters over 116 years old. There is nobody in our country over 116 years old. My question is, if every vote counts, and I think we're both operating under that same premise that every vote does matter, why doesn't every fraudulent vote or potentially fraudulent vote matter too?
This is going to be one of those stories that flares up in right-wing media, and then you never hear about it again. There was something similar that happened in North Carolina with the DMV reporting that something like 1,000 people voted who were dead. Upon further investigation, it was discovered to be a mixture of human error, of computer error, of clerical error. In a number of cases, there were fathers and sons who had the same name, and as a result, they were listed under this group of 1,000. So I'm especially looking at the fact that they all have the exact same age. That sounds like another instance of Y2K.
Right, but regardless, and I understand what you're saying. Some of this isn't intentional voter fraud. It's still voter inaccuracy. It's still fraudulent votes because they're not being cast by the people, by citizens. But regardless, we see in Ohio's 12th district, or we can see in the Kansas primary for governor, in the Republican primary, that the difference is like 90 votes. I mean, whether it's 170 votes, whether it's 1,000 in North Carolina, isn't that critically important to the integrity of our elections, that we make sure that every vote is real and not an error?
Well, for something to be fraudulent, there needs to be an intention. There needs to be somebody trying to vote twice, trying to impersonate another voter. These seem like legal votes that were just classed as illegal based on some sort of minor clerical error, and it's going to be used by Republicans to push more voter suppression. ID laws are their main tool, but also that they're always finding new ways. Ohio has gotten rid of something like 2 million votes in the last few years. If Republicans really believed in the basic idea of democracy, one person, one vote, and as many votes as possible, they wouldn't be, in conjunction with these voter ID laws, they'd also be spending a lot of money trying to figure out how people got
every vote matters. Why doesn't this bother you? I mean, you understand that just this amount of votes, 170 votes, could make the difference between a Republican in Congress and a Democrat in Congress, regardless of the intention. I'll even accept your premise. I don't agree with it, but I'll accept your premise for a second and say, okay, maybe these people didn't walk up and intentionally commit voter fraud, but even if it was an accident, even if it was a clerical error, shouldn't we be implementing things that prevent this from happening when it actually can change the course of an election?
It's so incredibly rare that it's almost comical. An analysis by both Arizona State University
it's rare? I mean, we see in this, I'm giving you a concrete example that's not hypothetical for once. A concrete example of somewhere where voter fraud could actually change the course of an election, and you're dismissing it. That's strange to me, coming from someone who belongs to a party who says that every vote matters.
In the 2016 election, the Washington Post found 4 cases, 3 of which were done by Republicans. Between 2000 and 2014, a couple of independent analyses found 14 cases. You compare that to attempts at voter suppression, we're talking in the range of 100,000
So let me just get this straight. Let me clarify, because I want to make sure that I understand what you're saying. So this 170 voters whose registration says that they're over 116 years old, even though the oldest person in the world is 115, you're dismissing this as not important? Is that what I'm understanding?
If it is discovered that all of these votes were fraudulent, which would be extremely surprising, considering how hard it is to get people to vote in the first place, much less to go and impersonate other people. Yeah, that would be a real issue. But I'm telling you, this is going to flare up on right-wing media and then never be heard of again once a criminal investigation is launched.
You're acting like that's a good thing. That's a terrible thing that nobody else besides those of us on the right are talking about it. These are fraudulent. These are fraudulent registrations, and in 2016, 72 of them cast fraudulent votes. You said yourself you don't think it's important. I mean, that's the answer. That's not the answer I would give.
And further,
but it's the answer. It's the answer you gave, Laramie.
Will reveal this.
We're out of time.
Further investigation will reveal this to be a clerical error, nothing else. A clerical error.
Well, we still need voter ID to make sure that clerical errors don't swing an entire election. Laramie, thanks for being here.